Welcome to InDesign Secrets, episode 317. I'm Anne-Marie Concepcion, and I'm here along with my lovely co-host, David Blattner.
And remember that InDesign Secrets is the essential resource for all things InDesign.
I-99.
Brought to you by the CreativePro Network.
That's right. Okay, so in today's show, we have a little news, as always, and we have a new kind of thing called the Hot List. David and I have scoured our forums online and picked two discussions amongst members that we thought would be really good to talk about here on the show. And then the obscure feature of the week is Proxy. And I came up with this one, and David still hasn't figured out where it is. And it's a
I found
wonderful day
one.
when I have stumped David.
I know.
You found
love that.
one. You found the wrong one.
I found one instance of Proxy, which now I can't remember what it was, but I found one, but I didn't find the right one. So
Okay.
it'll be
Well,
fascinating.
I was thinking that if do you play Wordle at all, the New
I
York
do.
Times game?
I do.
Wouldn't Proxy be an excellent word for Wordle? For
It-
Wordle?
and today's word for Wordle is proxy. Probably not. Okay, it'd be pretty funny
Okay.
if
Yeah,
it
it
was.
would be a good one.
I
Okay.
just realized though
Uh-huh.
that something. This is crazy. People watching this, we're recording this on video now and putting it on
Yeah.
YouTube and
Mhm.
put it on the website and so on. But people can see us say "eek eek eek." So
That's true.
there
That's
may
true.
be some people who get confused by that, thinking
Yeah.
that it was a special effect, and
Yeah. And
and
they're
it's
like,
not.
"What? They
Yeah,
lost their marbles.
yeah,
What are they doing?"
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
That's our high end special effect. Eek, 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 eek. Supposed to be an echo. Okay.
It is supposed to be an
Yeah.
echo. Okay. News. Let's talk about a little bit about that
Okay.
news. InDesign 19.3 is out
Yep.
at last.
Mm-hmm.
Not many changes. A few little updates with things. There was a bug that some people who were working with 19.2, if they saved it, the 19.1 people couldn't open it, which
Oh, right. I
is
remember
not
that.
supposed to happen. So they fixed that.
Yeah.
Now in theory, I haven't tried it, but 19.3 should be able to be open in earlier versions.
Mhm.
I think it's a bunch of bug fixes. Nothing major. As
Yeah,
far as
that's
I can tell.
2024 is what we're talking about. The
Thank you.
dot three update to 2024. A lot of people
Right.
don't know the actual number,
That's right.
the build.
That's a good
Anyway,
point.
yes. Okay.
And then you added that. This is big
Yes.
news, everybody.
Big
Big
news.
news. Mm.
Microsoft Publisher, Microsoft has announced
Uh-huh.
that they're no longer going to be supporting Publisher after October 2026. So it's end of life. Goodbye, Publisher. We hardly knew ye. I have not ever used it myself.
Yeah,
Not
I mean,
once.
yeah,
I've looked at it,
seriously.
but I've never used it. Have you?
Uh, I think the same thing. I've looked at it, but I've never really used it. Nothing for
Yeah.
real. So when you say hardly knew ye,
Right.
really, truly, hardly ever knew. Why
That's
are
right.
we talking about Microsoft Publisher on InDesign Secrets?
Well, I don't know. It's just we should talk about layout programs,
Oh, okay. All right.
right? So,
Next
like, if
up,
there was big news about Quark or big news about Ready, Set, Go, I guess we talk about them too.
okay. Next up, you can earn an InDesign certificate on LinkedIn Learning now.
Yes,
There
that's
has
right.
long been quizzes that you could take, like with the
Chapter quizzes
chapter
inside
quizzes,
the course.
and you can get, if you take a LinkedIn Learning course, a lot of courses have a little quiz, and then you get a little certificate saying I passed this.
Right.
I can finish. But now this is something different,
Yeah.
and I haven't taken it yet because it's brand new.
That's right. It was actually what's interesting. I told David about it because they hired me to write it. So I wrote the test along with the help of two very well-known other InDesign experts, and I haven't asked if I could share their names, but they'll let themselves be known. And I wrote it, and then they checked me, and then we went back and forth, and couldn't cover. We couldn't repeat any of the chapter quiz questions. It's still
Mm.
multiple choice. It's a
Mhm.
time test, um, but it had to cover only stuff that you talked about, David. It only covers your course, the Essentials course.
Isn't that
They also
weird?
did one for Photoshop Essentials and Illustrator Essentials
Okay.
with two other authors. So all three of these came out at the same time. And they were very careful about it. What they want the same how many questions are about printing versus how many were about digital
Hmm.
animation, or how much time did you spend in your course on certain topics. The test had to mimic that, and
Interesting.
also be some questions advanced, some beginner, mostly right in the middle. And if you didn't say anything about, what was one that caught me up, I one of them was about turning the preference on or off for auto activate Adobe fonts,
Oh,
and something having to do with Adobe fonts. And one of their testers, because then it went through editorial and then their own testing, said, I can't see where that's mentioned anywhere in the course. I'm like,
yeah.
he didn't
They,
talk about that, and you
I,
didn't.
I didn't.
Yeah, but
I
you did
didn't.
talk about some other preference settings, and
Yep.
so I often had to find the transcript and copy and paste to send to them. Say, he did talk about it here.
I think it's
So
fascinating that
yeah,
that they hired you to do a whole certification exam
hmm,
on my course at
yes,
LinkedIn Learning. But it's true. There's a lot of stuff that's not in that course. It's
it's just the
InDesign
essentials, just the essentials.
essential training. And
Yes,
so over the
yes,
years, a lot of people don't realize they go to the course, they're like, I'm going to learn everything there is to know about InDesign.
right,
And it's not. It's you learn how to be proficient with InDesign.
yes,
It's the essentials. It
yeah,
doesn't take you to the next level,
no.
but you got to start somewhere. And that course, I mean, that could be a 20, 30-hour course, but we
Yeah,
can't
if
do
you
that.
learned
It has to
everything
be
about
short.
InDesign, right? I
Yeah.
didn't see, I was really hoping you would have mentioned the winding rule. What was that thing that you and Ole used to always mention in your InDesign books that cracked me up? Nothing about that. I was really hoping to get a question in about
There
that.
is did we ever do that? We must have done that as an obscure feature.
I don't think so, because is it an obscure feature?
Well,
There's no
it's
interface for it.
the feature, the interface is reverse. If you have two strokes, two frames that overlap, and you
Okay.
combine them into a compound object, the winding rule. I
Goes
totally
into
forgot about
effect.
that. The
Yeah.
winding rule comes into effect.
David, when he was writing Real World InDesign for a bazillion years with his co-authors, including especially Ole
Yeah,
Cavern,
Ole Cavern.
they always had to devote like a whole section, at least a few paragraphs, to this obscure postscript thing about the winding rule and why some parts of a path get
Uh-huh.
filled and some parts don't. Some sort of algorithm. Like,
It's
who
helpful.
cares?
It's
But
really helpful. If you're trying to make
I
compound paths in
guess,
InDesign,
yeah.
we are really off on a tangent
Okay,
here.
we are, we
But
are.
if you're trying to make compound paths in InDesign or
Yeah,
Illustrator, same thing in Illustrator, it's the same feature
yeah.
really. Compound paths where you've got one object that has multiple paths
Uh huh.
combined. You need to pay attention to the winding rule. So we're going to put links in in
I guess
here.
so. I guess so. I've done that, and I've never paid any attention to the winding rule. And look, here I am. I'm still alive, still happy. So I don't know what that proves. But anyway, I had a good time and working with all those other
Good.
InDesign experts. It was kind of fun. And I always had in mind the poor people taking the test. Don't be cruel. Don't try to make them guess keyboard shortcuts.
Right.
Do stuff that really is an essential InDesign thing. And
I
that
would
if
love to
they said
hear.
he didn't cover this, we could say yes, he did right there. So
So, do they charge to take the test?
no, no. But
Okay.
you
So,
have to have completed your entire course, David.
okay.
You have to have watched the entire course before we'll put a link to where the certificate
Yeah.
page is,
Yep.
and that button to say, let me take the test is dimmed until you have completed watching at least 70% of every video in the
Wow.
course.
Well,
Yeah. Well, that's
watch my
right.
course,
There
learn
you
something.
go.
I
Hmm.
bet even advanced users, I bet would learn something new, even though it's the essentials. There's
That's
some
true. That's
important
true.
stuff in there.
You can take the test up to 3 times, I think, to
Okay.
pass. And you should, if people are really good with Photoshop or Illustrator, watch those courses, the essentials for Photoshop or
Yeah.
Illustrator,
Yeah. Yeah.
and take that test. I
Well,
saw some of the uh, essentials of Photoshop versions of the test, and my eyes crossed. There's no way I would ever pass that. I think I stopped learning Photoshop in version 5. I don't know. When they came out with
I
layers, I'm like, that's all I need.
that's
Okay,
all
I'm
you need.
good. Yeah.
I hope that I pass the test when I take it. I hope that I pass. That would be
I
really
passed and I
embarrassing.
took a screenshot. I got 100%, of
Nice.
course.
You
But I was a little
passed.
nervous. Yeah. Yeah, I
You
might have
passed the
forgotten.
test that you wrote.
Yes, I
Good.
did. Uh-huh.
Okay, moving along. Some other news. So that's
Yeah.
out there.
Okay.
There's just a quick update on the CC file sync.
Yeah.
Adobe, we mentioned I think last time that Adobe is discontinuing file sync, but it's still running.
It is still running out. Wait, I don't know. I asked some friends for them to try it, but I guess they haven't had a chance. It's all working for me, but then I realized I actually have a Teams account. So I have like a corporate account, so it's still going to
Mhm.
work for me. Um,
But I don't have a Teams account. I have a regular account, and
well,
I
can you
tested it.
yeah,
I
go
tested it
ahead.
and it
Did you
works.
test it?
Yeah, yeah, and
And
it
what
works.
happened?
I have a file in the in that folder, the Creative Cloud files folder
Yeah.
on my hard drive, and I
Okay.
updated a file there. I just edited it.
Can you right click and
Uh
do you
huh.
see the option to view on the website?
Yep, and it says view on website, and
Okay.
up it comes, and
Oh, so it's still there.
it's still there. And it
Okay.
updated on the website. So no, it's all still working. I think they forgot. I think they announced that they're going to discontinue it, and then somebody fell asleep and
Yeah,
forgot to turn it off.
I guess
So
so. All right. All right.
someday it'll
Fine.
be gone. Uh, and then okay, this is the important news. Can we
Okay.
get to the important news
Yeah,
here?
let's do the important stuff.
Upcoming events. In a
Yeah.
couple weeks, we've
That's right.
got the InDesign and Long Document Summit,
Yeah,
which
it's
is a
going to be a good one.
1 day
Mhm.
smorgasbord on InDesign topics. It's going to be awesome. Russell Veers, Chad Chelius, who else is speaking? A bunch of Erica Gamet is doing
Lori,
styles.
isn't Lori Rulin
Lori
speaking?
Rulin, Julie
Right.
Schaefer. It is going
Yeah.
to be awesome. Nigel
And
French.
it's not just if you do encyclopedias. Any document longer than 10 pages, I would say, anything
Yeah.
that needs parent pages and styles, variables, that kind of stuff, they're going to
Yep.
cover this.
Yep.
So I think it's going to
Table of
be excellent.
contents. I
Right.
mean, a little bit of
Hmm.
everything. All the features that go into creating longer documents. So
Right.
uh, don't miss it. It's going to be great. And I think, do we have a deal on there? Oh, yeah. You
Yeah.
can get $100 off any pass using
Uh-huh.
the code CP Secrets, Creative
Right.
Pro Secrets, CP
CP
Secrets.
secrets. Right.
$100 off. That code will also work for our other events like Creative Pro Week. Creative Pro
That's
Week is
right.
going to be in DC, July 8th through 12th, I think
Hmm.
it is. It's also live streamed online if you can't make it there in person. CP Secrets, $100 off any multi day pass.
Yeah.
Check it out. It's going to be awesome.
Cool.
So, want to make sure you know about that.
Okay.
Lastly, Creative Pro Magazine coming out,
Hmm.
and there's a couple of Photoshop articles which are going to be amazing, especially on
Okay.
AI, Photoshop and AI. Julie
Hmm.
Schaefer wrote a terrific article about. It's not specifically about Photoshop. It's about when you to use AI in
Hmm.
real work, and when you might not want to, and what does it mean?
That's
What are the ethical considerations you should be considering to if you're going to be using AI? So that's going to be great. But the article that everyone here needs to check out in Creative Pro Magazine, Jeff Potter wrote a tour de force article on calculations in InDesign. So
ah.
if you have stuff that needs to be calculated, maybe a row full of, I'm sorry, a column full of numbers in a
Yeah.
table, and you want
Yeah.
to have a calculation, you want to add them up or multiply them or
Uh-huh.
whatever. How do you do that in InDesign? So there are scripts. There's all kinds of scripts and tools and
Ah.
plugins,
Cool.
and he's collected all of these amazing calculation tools
Cool. All
that
right.
enhance, augment InDesign
Uh-huh.
to do all kinds of calculations. So
Neat.
yeah, it is neat. It's great. Thank you, Jeff, for
Thank you,
that
Jeff. Yeah,
incredible
looking
thing.
forward to that one.
Yeah, good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you suggested that we talk about dealing with screen display issues, which
Ah,
I don't think I mentioned up in the.
oops.
Did I mention that in the what's in today's show? Anyway, you want to talk about screen display issues?
Just a couple of things quickly
Yeah.
because there have been there's two categories of screen display issues that I want to mention. First is that I upgraded to Sonoma. What is it? 15, 10?
I
I
think
can't remember the
so.
numbers. Whatever
Yeah.
Mac OS Sonoma is, and Sonoma
Right.
has some issues, or some people have had issues in InDesign with screen flickering. You try and do something, and your
Hmm.
screen flickers on and off, and it's a mess.
And it's
Um,
only in InDesign, not other
it's
apps.
only InDesign.
Huh.
It is only InDesign. It is truly a
I'm not on
mystery.
Sonoma, so I haven't seen any kind of screen display issues really.
Well, this has
So
not happened to me either, but I was on the
okay.
lookout for it because I've read about it so much.
Yeah.
And I just got to tell you the solution for that kind of flickering in Sonoma
Okay.
is the weirdest solution ever.
Okay.
You turn off the rulers. You know, Command R, Control R.
Really?
The rulers on the side of the page, document rulers, somehow are causing this flickering, which
So if
makes
you turn off the
no
rulers and
sense.
keep them off, then you won't see the
You
flickering.
won't see the flickering. Yeah, you
What
turn
if you
them on
just
when you
turn
need
them
it.
off and turn them on? Would
Yeah,
that
turn them
fix
on
it?
when you need them, and then turn them off when
Oh,
you don't. So Command R, Control R turns on and off the rulers.
that
It's a
is
little thing.
bizarre.
Isn't that weird? It makes no sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
someone
that
figured
is
that out, and
okay.
it apparently works. So
Maybe
anyway, that's
something where the
one.
the rulers are having to track where the cursor is, and it's causing some kind of screen thing. And now
Yes,
you don't doesn't have to track, doesn't have to figure that out.
it's doing that.
Did you
I don't know.
test to see if it was just the horizontal versus the vertical? I would. Why not?
Okay, the
Okay.
other thing, but that's a very specific kind of screen
Okay.
display problem, which only seems to happen with that one operating system. The other kind of screen display problem is something that we have seen for years and years and years, and that's just stuff going wonky. Just every now and again, I'll be working in InDesign, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't look right.
Okay.
For example, text variables may not update,
Okay.
or a table just disappears. Tables are will often I'll be going from one page to the next, and the table that's supposed to be there just doesn't show up. It's not that the table's not there.
Mhm.
It's a screen display problem. InDesign is not updating the screen properly with all the objects. There
Okay.
are some really wacky, weird screen display things I've seen recently where it's almost like abstract art. Very
I've seen people post screenshots of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's just
Interesting.
things go wrong. So what do you do about that? Not a, it does. It's Mac and Windows. It's been happening for years on and off. Things just go wrong. So there's two things that you need to know. One is try zooming in and out.
Oh, yeah.
Oftentimes you
Okay.
just need to change this display. So
Mhm.
Command minus or Command plus
Okay.
or Control minus plus. Zoom out and in. Boom.
Mhm.
Oftentimes the problem goes away. Sometimes it doesn't though. So my favorite trick for getting rid of stuff that's screen display problems is check the view menu. At the top of the view menu, see if you can see uh, what is it called? I just lost it all of a sudden. View.
Overprint preview?
No. The preview on CPU or preview on GPU. So if you
Oh, I
have,
think I think that I have turned off my GPU or it's not enabled on mine.
if
Maybe that's
you
why I'm not having screen
that
problems.
actually no, seriously, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
That could be it. If you are using the GPU, which Adobe started
Mhm.
turning on by default a few versions ago,
Mhm.
that can cause weirdness.
Hmm.
And so under the view menu, you'll see preview on CPU, which just means turn off the GPU processing, just use
Yeah.
the old style CPU. On the other hand, sometimes I've found it broken on the CPU, and turning on the GPU actually fixes it.
Okay.
I don't know why this happens. All I wanted to do was pass on a few tips for things you can do. Zoom in and out,
All right.
change to a different page,
That's
come
always
back,
that always helps. That's
and
good.
turn on and off or toggle between the preview on CPU or GPU.
Okay.
And that usually fixes it. I just little things that
Good.
all
Good to
InDesign
know.
users should know.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay.
All right, so this new thing that we're going to do is called the hot list, where we uh, check out what's been happening in the InDesign
Mm.
forums that we run on Facebook and on LinkedIn. There's other places where they talk about InDesign, but those are the two most important. And they're very busy and they're very helpful. I mean, I'm so impressed with how many people jump in to help, especially in the Facebook group. There's over 30,000, maybe
It's
35,000
a lot. Yeah, a
users
lot of.
now, and some posts, I mean, Erica kind of is like the boss of it all. Erica and what's his name? Dharma, can't remember his name. Um,
Doffer.
Daffer, right?
Yep.
Erica and Daffer police everything so that only on topic posts go up and people are nice to each other.
Yeah.
Um, but some of these posts engender dozens, scores of comments and people going back and forth. And I think that they're fascinating. They're really good. So, David, I looked at them and picked out a couple to talk about today. One of them was a person posted, and we'll include links to the
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn or Facebook actual post. But this nice woman named Lisa said she can't find an answer. She was trying to create a grid of logos on her page. And she did them by using a table with graphic cells. Okay. But then she realized that she needs to have them in alphabetical order and that sometimes she gets late additions. Sometimes she has to move one. And how can they now she's got to move everything over manually? What if she's got hundreds of these logos? Is there a better
Yeah.
way to do that than tables?
Yeah.
So that got a ton of responses.
Yeah. Great. And great
Almost
ideas. There were
yes,
some fun ideas in there.
lots of them, lots
One
of them.
person was saying there's this image swap script. If you only have a few of them and you just need to swap images,
Hmm.
there's actually a script that we'll put a link to in the show notes that allows you select two. Actually, that's an interesting point. I don't know if it'll work in a table, but typically you select two frames and you
Hmm.
run the script and it just swaps the images. I think it might work if you select the images inside the frames in the tables. Anyway, we'll have to try that. But I thought that was a fascinating. That was kind of a clever idea. You'd have to like swap and swap and swap and swap. You'd still take a bunch of swapping to
Right,
make it work. But
right.
that's
I
one.
I remember when somebody asked us about this about doing yearbook pictures.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's not just the pictures, they need the person's name, stuff like that below it.
Yeah.
And sometimes people would, get added at the last minute. And I always thought that the answer was to use anchored objects so that you group the picture
And the
and the
caption.
caption,
Yeah.
and then you anchor that in a big page size text frame.
Yep.
And then you just keep doing that with all of them so that if you remove one, it all rewraps just like a long line of text will rewrap if you get rid of a word.
That I think that's my preference. That's what I would do with this kind
Yeah.
of situation. I totally agree. And it's a technique
Right.
that most InDesign.
Don't even use a table. Don't bother about the
Yeah,
table.
tables ultimately are
Yeah.
it's too firm. It's hard to
Right.
move stuff around the table. Yeah, a lot of InDesign users don't think about the idea that you can take a group of objects and anchor it into a text frame. And like
Yeah.
you said, you can have lots and lots of groups in a row. You don't have to have any text. It could just be
Right.
objects, anchored objects, and
That's
then
right.
they'll flow as though because an anchored object acts like text and it'll flow around. And then it's easy to drag and drop them. You can literally turn on drag and drop in preferences and drag
Right.
them into the order you
And you
want
can
them.
set like, you can use leading to space them out
Hmm.
vertically.
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess you could use tabs or
You can
something to
use
space them out horizontally,
yeah, just put a space between
something
them,
like that.
or you could
Right.
also even better apply an object style,
Hmm.
and then in with the object style, apply things like text wrap. So you can
Right.
push things away, you can push them apart with a text wrap. Applying object styles, if you're going to anchor an object into a frame, and you're going to do it more than once or
Hmm.
twice or three times, you definitely should apply an object style to it first, and then you can have all kinds of control over how
Right.
that sits inside that frame.
Now, but I have to say, I think that Lori Rulin came up with the best answer, especially if you have dozens of these or hundreds of
Yes.
pages, and that is to use a free script by
Yep.
Loic. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Loic
Loic
Igon. Yeah.
Ayan, called Inline Merge,
Yeah.
and it actually uses data merge, which is pretty simple to do. If you have all your pictures in a folder and you have the names of stuff, that you arrange on the page, and it's just easier to see. And Lori created a 5-minute video and uploaded it to YouTube on the fly just for this thread. And she forgot to link to the script, so I added a comment to link to the script.
Great.
And that is the best way to do it, and it's really fast and simple.
Well, and
So yeah,
technically, it is doing exactly what you just
is it doing
said.
the same thing?
It's
Yeah.
simply making an object inside that's anchored inside of a text frame,
Uh huh.
and so it just does it much faster.
Right.
If you
Right.
had five, you might as well do it manually. But
Yeah.
if you had 50 of these, like, or
That's true.
500, like a
Right.
yearbook, like you're saying, that inline merge script is
Hmm.
unbelievably helpful. It's
Yeah.
so great. Loic should be given a medal for that. It's incredible.
That's right. All right. Another one. Um, I like this. This is fun. We didn't come up with the final answer for this one,
Mm,
and it
mm-hmm.
wasn't quite exactly to do with InDesign, but it got a lot of responses and a lot of almost fist fights back and forth. One of our frequent contributors to the InDesign Secrets Facebook group, Keith, said that he set a book. He's a book designer, book publisher, or designer, and he set a book in a typeface that's a little too light for the print on demand service that his client is using or wants to
Hmm.
use. Okay. So they went through all these proofing rounds. They went through all the design proofs and all the editorial proofs, and they came up with the final one that looks great on as a PDF. But when print on demand, it's a little too light. So now he says, now what do I do? Is there any way to make it a little heavier? He thought that maybe was there an equivalent to Photoshop's um, it has a setting for type called sharp, crisp, smooth,
Strong.
strong, but that's
Hmm.
just for pixels.
Yeah.
That's to make pixels sharper. I mean, to make the font look better when it's laid out with pixels, and these aren't pixels. So people went back and forth about what's a way to make the type a little stronger. And of course, my your first answer would be choose a different typeface. If that typeface doesn't have a medium, or a semi bold or something else that can thicken it up, then you got to use different typeface. But who wants to redo the entire publication in a new font? He can't do
Right.
that. So he
Right.
couldn't
Right.
do that.
Well, it would reflow everything, of course,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
And they have to
once
start
you
all
have the
over.
book done, yeah, it would be
That's
a
right.
mess.
So
Yeah.
somebody else suggested, what you could do is you could add, you could add a stroke to the font, a tiny, tiny stroke, like 0.05 or zero point 0.1 of a
Mm-hmm.
point,
Mm-hmm.
a black stroke to the type, and that would thicken it up a little bit, and it might be good. And oh my gosh, you thought the world exploded. All these typesetters came out. No way! Absolutely no. That'll gum it all up, and your kerning and tracking will be thrown off. And it could all possibly be true, but it went back and forth, back and forth. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if Keith ever
Yeah.
uh,
I think
did he come up with a way.
Keith came up with a solution, which was go ahead and just throw the stroke on there. I
Oh,
think
he
he added
did.
the stroke. Look,
Wow.
it's not. Sometimes you have to break the rules. I mean, I
Yeah.
completely agree. Adding
Yeah.
a stroke to all your text is not a good idea most
Yeah.
most of the
Right.
time. That's not what you should be doing.
Right.
It is an abomination. But you know what? Sometimes you're on deadline and you just got to get that book
That's
to
right.
look right for
I
your
see it
client.
now. He says this isn't getting reset with a heavier weight, so a teeny, teeny little stroke, and he's out the door. He's done.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he fixed it. But people are like, if you were using a variable typeface, then you could really finesse it, and that's true. But
yeah.
again, you'd have to go back to the drawing board and choose a different typeface. It was variable.
No, I thought that was a really great idea. That
Yeah.
you still may have some reflow issues if you do that, but I do think that using variable fonts, it's one of the best things about variable fonts is you
Right.
can often dial in the weight.
Yeah.
Depends on the variable font. Make it a little heavier, make it a little
Right.
bit wider, and so on. There are definitely things you can do.
That's true. I
It's
don't know if
I
we ever
love
talked
variable
about using.
fonts.
Have we talked about it on the podcast?
Yeah,
Did we? Because they just started
probably.
supporting variable fonts a couple versions ago, I think.
It's everything's a
2020.
blur at this point,
Yeah.
so we must have. Uh,
All right. Yeah. But anyway, so those are two really interesting discussions. And if you haven't checked out the InDesign Secrets groups on LinkedIn or Facebook, please join us and
yeah.
we'll put links to these two discussions. If you want to add your own comments, go right ahead.
Yes,
All
yes.
right.
They
Yes.
really are great groups, and I just some kind people. I mean, sometimes it gets a
Very
little
kind.
brusque, but
Yes.
people are really trying to be helpful,
Yeah.
and I love that about that.
That's
That's
right.
what we're all about. Is
That's right.
we're here to help. So that's great.
All right.
Okay, what's next?
Are you ready, David? It's
Yeah.
time for the obscure feature of the week. Eek, eek, eek,
Eek,
eek,
eek,
eek.
eek, 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 eek.
And this one is Proxy. 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 Where do you
Proxy.
find Proxy in the InDesign interface?
Is it in the file menu? Is it
Why
in
would
the
it be in
edit
the file?
menu?
Stop it.
Is it in the
Where did you think it was? You had an idea.
You know, my first thought actually, to me, the proxy in InDesign is what I think is technically called the reference point. On the far
Oh,
left
that
side,
grid thing?
the grid on the left
Yeah,
side of
yeah,
the control panel or in the properties panel, that
right.
grid that says when you click on something, I call that the proxy. So that was my first thought. That's not the proxy. Um,
Mm,
I actually can't remember where I found proxy. I think it's oh, in preferences. In preferences, there is a oh, in preferences in display performance. That's not it, is it? That's not what you're thinking of?
no,
Okay.
but
In preferences in display performance pane or panel, whatever you want to call it,
I'm
in
looking, I'm looking.
preferences, there are three sliders. And those
Yes.
sliders, by default, are set to something called high resolution. We don't need to get into what these things
Right,
are.
right.
But if you move the slider into the middle, it changes to proxy, that
Oh, that's
middle
true.
point.
For raster images proxy. And that's the default setting. So when you have like, you know, sort of a little bit pixelated
That
images,
used
when
to
you
be
place
default.
an image,
Yeah. I don't
you
think
don't
it's
think
default
it's
anymore.
you
No,
don't, oh really?
they changed
Interesting.
it to high. I don't know. On my machine,
Okay.
it's high resolution. Okay, that's the only proxy I can. Those are
Well,
the only
that's
two
closer
proxies.
to the actual proxy thing that I meant. And
Oh,
this came
okay.
about because I needed to print a proof
Yeah.
on my clunky little HP color laserjet printer
Okay.
that had a
Oh,
lot of images, and I did not want to waste all the ink on high res images. So
proxy,
I was
proxy.
looking around the print
Of
dialog
course,
box.
of course.
There it is. And under graphics, under images, send data, that menu is by default optimized sump sampling, which would be a good uh, obscure feature of the week in itself. But there's an option called proxy. So proxy would send a low
Yeah.
res preview of the
Yep.
image.
Yep.
Another choice there is none, which just sends an empty box through.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great tip. If you ever want to print really fast, if you've got a
mhm,
bunch of images that you don't want the image, if you have a bunch of pages,
right,
you want to print the text and you don't want it to slow down with the images, you set that to none. You don't get any images. It
right.
automatically turns them off, that's a cool tip. I totally forgot that proxy was in there.
Who knows? Right.
Low
And of
res.
course, then I had to do a bunch of tests on my printer, and I don't know, maybe I wasn't choosing the right graphics, but I could not tell the difference between proxy and optimized subsampling or
It,
all. That's another option is all.
I think that
So,
the problem is
yeah,
that it's um, pr- computers and printers are so fast now that it's
maybe.
really hard to tell the difference.
Yeah,
In the old days, it was a difference between 2 minutes to print and
that's
10
true.
seconds.
No, no, no. I'm talking about the results. I mean, I took both of them. This was printed
Yeah,
as
yeah.
proxy.
Oh, you
This
couldn't
is
see
printed
the.
as all, and
Oh,
they look the same.
on a laser printer, I don't think you'd
I
notice.
know. Oh, okay.
You probably
Yeah.
wouldn't notice. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that is proxy, and it's interesting that
Yeah.
it is just in the print dialog box. I don't think it's in export to PDF because there you can do your own subsampling. You can
Right.
change the resolution as you export.
Well, now I'm wondering if proxy shows up another place. We're gonna have to find out.
Ooh,
We're
where are
gonna
you
look
looking
this.
now?
No, I don't know. I'm good. Somebody out there
Ah,
listening to this is gonna say they totally forgot
hmm.
proxy in this other place.
Okay, yeah. Add
Let us know.
let us know. That's right. That brings us to the conclusion of this episode. David, take it away.
Oh, that is it for episode 317. So be sure to check out the show notes on our blog at creativepro.com/podcasts, where we'll have links to all the different places we talked about, and including scripts
And we'll
and
have a link.
downloads. And
I think we have links, or we even put it in there, the YouTube video, because this gets posted to YouTube as well.
we will, yes, yeah, we'll put the video there as well. If you want to watch that,
Uh-huh.
you can check
You
that
want
out
to
there.
watch us talk to each other and, make snide comments and roll our eyeballs while the other one is talking? Yeah.
I, yes, uh, let us know. Totally.
Uh-huh.
I now don't even know where I am in the
Now you're
script.
paranoid. Right. Leave
Uh,
a comment in the show notes. Start a topic on our InDesign Secrets groups on either Facebook or LinkedIn. And until we meet again, this is Anne Marie Concepcion and
David Blattner for InDesign Secrets.